wanted to hop on here and give kind of a recap of what happened with Barry Morphew's preliminary hearing day 1. We're going to kind of wait till more people get on. I'm going to go through my notes. I took 17 pages of notes. She took some notes. She was also in the courtroom with me. This is Sarah Hempelman, my photographer. And we're going to just wait. Tell us, where you're watching in from. And if you followed my tweets, if those tweets were helpful or if they were too convoluted or anything like that. So please tell us where you are watching from, and we'll kind of start going over my 17 pages of notes, and then also she'll go over her notes too. We can just discuss what happened today. We can also take some questions at the end. We also need to get to bed early because we have an early day tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we don't have a reserved seat in the courtroom, so we are going to have to get there early to hopefully snag a spot. So just let us know kind of where you're watching from, if you kind of paid attention to my tweets, if the tweets were helpful or not, and then we will start looking at my notes. It's
Australia,
a lot.
look at you.
Whoa.
Down under.
Someone says, can you clarify the tower? I don't know exactly what they're talking about. I wish we could slow this down.
Off the towers, it's probably like cell phone towers. And
yeah.
One of your tweets or something.
Maybe they said tower, TOWER, and then TOUR. Maybe, yeah. Like when you're tweeting, it readjusted what I was saying. It was... All right.
You can slow chat.
You using the StreamYard. I do not use StreamYard. I don't have that. I probably should get that, though. So I don't know how to slow this down. The comments. I don't know.
Is it that one?
Super chat? I have no idea what that is.
Top? No. None.
Okay, well,
Slow mode.
we are going to go over our notes. So let's just start. Okay, so one of the first things I noticed was that the defense attorney asked for opening statements, about a minute that she wanted to kind of go over the affidavit, and the judge said, no, we don't have time. The judge was very adamant throughout the whole day today about timing. Yeah. He was worried that either the defense wouldn't have enough time cross-examining or the prosecution wouldn't have enough time presenting witnesses, and I'm actually shocked that they only presented 2 witnesses, and it was 2 investigators that they brought to the stand. The first one was Commander Alex Walker. He currently works with the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office, but he has previously worked with the 11th Judicial District, and when Suzanne went missing is when he was working for the 11th Judicial District. Yeah. So let's go over our notes first. They first talked about, the initial call, about who called 911 and why was it Martin Ritter. This is a neighbor, which we both have met him.
Yep.
We just kind of ran into him as we were leaving the area, shooting a story one day, and he was really nice. He said that he called the Chaffee County non-emergency number for a missing, a welfare check on Suzanne Morphew. And he didn't go into detail of as far as why he was the one that called 911 instead of the daughters or, Barry Morphew himself. Anyway, so they talked a little bit about who located the bicycle, Suzanne's bicycle, and they showed us the actual surveillance video from the body cam worn video. Yeah. And when you first saw that, what was your reaction to seeing her bike for the first time? This is the first time we actually, got to see it.
Yeah, it was interesting because you hear the way everyone else describes it from either what they've heard or whatever. So it was interesting seeing it, and it made a lot more sense because, a lot of what they said was true. It didn't look like it had fallen. There was no scrapes. It wasn't bent. There was nothing around the bike that looked like it had fallen down a hill or anything. It looked like it was just kind of placed there. But if I remember, it was upside down. Like it was on the hill, but it was upside down.
Yeah, so the front wheel was facing downwards, and even when the officer picked up the bike and moved it a little bit further down the hill off of County Road 225, he wasn't wearing gloves. I did notice that. And
Yes, that definitely stood out to me, that you wouldn't immediately put gloves on to make sure your fingerprints
or even take
aren't getting on it.
photos. I understand there's going to be video, but
Yeah.
still take photos, I think, of how the bike was first seen, you know. And the front tire, they were having difficulties with it, but they realized that the brake was on the bike.
It was like locked up, so it couldn't move.
So then they fixed that, and then they brought it up to County Road 225. But there was no significant damage to it. There wasn't blood around the scene. There wasn't,
There was no scrapes or anything on it, like it, because I mean that hill that it fell down.
It's like straight up.
It's not smooth either. There's rocks, so you would think if a bike had fallen or somebody was even on it, there would be scratch marks on it, like paint would have come off or something, and it looked perfectly normal.
Yeah. So, and I thought it was hard for me to hear the deputies calling out for Suzanne.
Yeah.
I mean, when they first saw the bike, they were yelling, "Suzanne, are you out here? You know, Suzanne, Suzanne." And that was heartbreaking. And I know, this is the first time also that, Suzanne and Barry's daughters and, family members who are in the courtroom, and also Suzanne's, brothers and sister is watching this for the first time on WebEx. And I can't imagine what they went through today. It was a long day for them, and so the other body cam, they showed a lot of body cam video. They showed when Barry first got to the bike scene. So it's dark. And
by the time he got back from Broomfield, it was pretty dark. You couldn't really make out a whole lot of what was happening.
So it said 1935 is when the timestamp of the body cam video of when Barry got on scene. And the first thing he asks is, did she crash?
Yeah.
And then he was asked, is she an avid biker? And he said something like, she just got into it, got into mountain biking. And if you didn't see some of my tweets, the bike was navy with light blue pedals. And
I thought it was interesting because one of the other body cam videos was of a deputy talking to, I don't remember which daughter, but one of their boyfriends.
Macy's daughter, or Macy's boyfriend, Miles Harvey. They showed video of him at the Morphew residence.
Yeah.
And he's coming out of the garage, and you can see Suzanne's vehicle there. And he says she typically takes her...
Yeah, she puts the bike in the back of the Range Rover.
And takes it to trails, and the car was still there. And then it's like a few minutes later that the deputies inform Miles and his father that, hey, actually, we just found her bike.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh my goodness, let's go find where that bike is, let's go help. And then they were also asking, like, what trails that Suzanne liked to bike on a lot.
Yeah.
And again, they talked about how she typically took her Range Rover and drove it to where she wanted to go on mountain bike rides. And it's like Methodist Mountain was a picture that they showed of Suzanne wearing her light blue, turquoise bike helmet and literally a matching jacket.
Yeah.
And she had a camel pack on, which her camel pack was in her Range Rover.
Yep.
And, they also spoke about the sunglasses. The sunglasses were also in the Range Rover. But they did mention about the Range Rover
when they
being
sold it. Yeah, some of
and it was
Suzanne's stuff was still in there when Barry had sold her Range Rover in Indiana.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. Plus they asked Miles about like their relationship because that was like one of the first things they asked him was, if there was anything weird between Suzanne or Barry, just what their marriage was like. And Miles was very open about saying that like they had issues in the past and had no problem talking about how they didn't have a perfect marriage, which was definitely eye-opening because so many people thought that they had this cookie-cutter life, and the boyfriend just flat out was like, no, yeah, they fight.
Yeah, people were
They're getting spats.
people are asking about the label that was with her name and the Macy and Mallory, and as well as Barry Morphew's
Yeah.
name inside the helmet that they found a couple days later after finding the bike, a couple miles from where they found the bike, and they didn't say if it was handwritten or not. Did they?
No, they just said it was more so, I guess a lot of people that do mountain biking, that's like typical for them. So the investigator even said this too, like, God forbid they fall down a hill or they get injured or something and they're not coherent enough to tell the emergency crews, you know, who to call. They have it in their helmet already, so he kind of implied that was just a typical thing that bikers do just in case.
They also mentioned how cold it was the morning that Suzanne was reportedly missing. It was a little bit above freezing at 8 a.m. that morning. The bike was found 1.9 miles from the house, south on Highway 50, 10 meters from the road. No damage was done to the bicycle helmet. And again, that piece of paper with her name, number, and family contact information was on it as well. So they jumped around in their interviews, and when they were when they were cross-examining the witnesses and things, they asked this investigator, his name was Commander Alex Walker, about how did Barry describe Suzanne's relationship with him? And Barry described the evening before Suzanne went missing, so that was Saturday night, as great. She described Suzanne as his angel. They've dated since she was 17 years old. Described as a wonderful person, very good relationship, and loved her to death. He tried to text her around 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning on Sunday morning to wish her a happy Mother's Day, and he never heard back from Suzanne. And then so did Mallory and Macy, and they didn't get a response either. And so it was around noon or 1 o'clock when this investigator said that Barry, talked to Mallory and asked if they had heard from Suzanne or anything like that, and they said no, and they started to worry. And it was Mallory who I think reached out, or maybe Barry that reached out around 4 or 5 to the neighbors to kind of go over there, find out what's going on, or to call for a welfare check. He also mentioned the RV park, which we've both been to, which is a couple miles down from Highway 50 from the Morphew home on Puma Path. And he mentioned that the RV park was suspicious, and that if to go check it out if they haven't found her yet.
They didn't really touch on that too much. They just kind of brought up that Barry said that was somewhere that they should check.
It was a suspicious location if she was not found. And they later did check it out, and there was nothing. And then he also mentioned the mountain lion scenario.
Yeah, that's been a common theme for him, is thinking that was a possibility.
That was but that wasn't a huge topic of discussion in today's preliminary hearing. It kind of was. Yes, he mentioned a mountain lion theory and multiple other scenarios. He also, I guess Barry had mentioned to an investigator that his worst scare was someone picking her up. So now here comes the abduction theory of maybe someone took her from the roadway. They had a 30-minute conversation. Alex Walker also said that there was 10 plus agencies who had been involved in the search for Suzanne, and obviously the search for Suzanne is still ongoing because Suzanne has still not been found. Let me continue on. Are you pulled up your notes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mine aren't as detailed as hers. Mine are just key things that stand out to me, so I wrote them down real fast.
They interviewed Barry Morphew on May 10th at 1 in the morning. They didn't go into how long that interview was, but Barry, again, in that interview was very willing to help, and they said if there's, if he could help in any way, just let me know. The defense attorney, Drew Nelson, mentioned that cell phone service is bad in that area, which I think everyone knows at this point.
It's not good.
No, we tried
It's really bad.
we just experienced that for ourselves. We were trying to send our package for 9 o'clock and it didn't make it on time. Anyways, again, he mentioned to the investigators that if foul play was involved, to check the RV park. If she crashed her bike right there, she should have been there, Barry had said to investigators. So I'm trying to look at my notes as well as my Twitter account because I was trying to do both at the same time. And anyway, another thing that they mentioned when they recovered the bike, and we saw it and heard it on the body-worn camera video, was one of the deputies yells, "Don't touch the bike."
Yeah.
And one of the investigators who was on the stand, said that who they were talking to was in fact Barry Morphew and George Davis, which is a friend of Barry Morphew, and helped a lot extensively with this search.
Yeah.
And with the civilian search with Barry Morphew and his friends, which I've talked to George Davis, and he told me how extensive he searched with Barry and his friends. And if you want to watch that interview that I did or that I talked about with George Davis, you can watch it on my YouTube channel here. They talked about no blood found in the Morphew home in the investigation, and
anywhere.
And in the whole 1 year that they've been investigating, there's been no blood found. But like the DA said, she said, does that mean that a murder was not committed? Like, can someone die from something that doesn't involve blood, or and the investigator said no. I mean, someone can die still from all these other things. So the investigator said a lot of agencies came together to find a lady. A lot of resources have been expended, and we are not going to stop. I thought that was a really powerful statement from Commander Walker. Over 70 law enforcement officers have been involved, and that includes, there's more than there's analysts, there's scientists,
Technologists.
yeah, and this Commander Walker said this is the largest coordinated effort he has ever been involved in. Thousands of hours for this case. There was grid searches, there was drones, there was aircraft, scuba divers, Salito Swiftwater team, canines. They searched in mines. They searched in a water pipe. They had a geologist that brought in a ground penetrating radar. It was just a lot of efforts. They did mention briefly about County Road 105, where they searched for 3 days specifically, which was an area that Barry Morphew worked a couple days before Suzanne went missing, and they sifted, and they again said, no human remains were found.
Yeah.
So
I love that note there at the bottom.
Oh. I had taken a note about Barry handing his attorney her water bottle. I don't know.
She's very thorough. She's going to tell you every detail.
Well, people want to know. I'm sure people want to know what Barry Morphew was wearing. He was wearing a suit, a gray, a charcoal gray suit.
And some cowboy boots.
Yes. And
Rocking some cowboy boots.
Yeah. And then they talked a little bit about the helmet more. They talked about how on Friday, May 15th, that they had volunteer searchers that went off of both sides of the highway, of Highway 50, and they searched from County Road 225 up to Monarch Mountain Lodge, both sides of the highway, to find any more evidence other than the helmet, and they didn't find anything else. Let's see what else they did.
That was another thing that kept getting brought up, was how much they've searched. A mile radius around the house, 5 mile radius around the house. And the investigator was honest and said, we haven't searched all of it, but he also explained that it's because of the terrain. That's not, I don't know if you have all looked to see where they live. It is not an easy terrain. It is in the middle of the woods. There are hills, there's rocks. It would be really, really difficult to search all of that in that amount of time, especially when they've got, tips about looking in other places. So I feel like that was almost tried to be they tried to use that against him to imply that they haven't searched everywhere, but he made it very clear that the terrain just makes that very difficult on them.
Yeah, so then they talked about the search warrants at the home. There was over 1,400 tips and thousands of miles of searched, of course. There were more than 110 search warrants. The first search warrant was issued on May 11th, so just one day after Suzanne was reported missing. And they also mentioned how Barry Morphew wasn't even allowed to go get more clothes out of the house. He was only allowed back into the home to point to clothes of Suzanne Morphew to give to the dogs to get sense of, a scent of Suzanne to go search for Suzanne. The house was given back to the Morphews on May 20th. Then on July 8th, investigators asked if they could bring pizza to Barry and talk with him. And this is when they were writing and crafting the second search warrant of the home.
Yeah.
And Barry had mentioned, don't bring food. We're grilling steak, so we can just put 2 more on for you guys. And so search warrant was the 9th and the 10th. On the 9th, there was 28 law enforcement officers who were involved. That was 14 FBI officers. And then on July 10th, there was 18 law enforcement officers and 10 were FBI agents. They took over 100 photos. There were multiple items that were seized, but again, no blood was found except for, do you want me to say that?
Oh.
Or no?
Oh. Just some feminine stuff.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden we hear about this 2-year-long affair. And then later on in the hearing, one of the investigators was like, actually, it was really a year and a half. It was from September of 2018, right? Yeah. 2018.
Yep. 2018, yep.
Through when she was reported missing.
Yep.
And so this is when we first hear about Jeff Libler. And I had heard about this a little previously. And, I had talked to some of Suzanne's friends that was in Alexandria, and they said, yeah, they went to high school together, they were friends, and that was kind of all they knew. Anyway, so back on the record, Andrew Walker, they kept saying Alex and then Andrew. He's still in the stand. They talk a little bit about Barry's truck and how messy it is, and that they had a search warrant as well for the truck. They also had 2 dog handlers from El Paso County